The narrative, the story is about an incident that happened about 20 years ago, and it took place in my grandparents' house, or my family house, which is about 20 feet away from the border of Southern Ireland. So that my family lived in Northern Ireland, but they were about 20 feet away from the border. So there was always a lot of things going on, and so I decided to depict one of those stories. What happened was the British Army decided that there's certain roads that they didn't want to use, or didn't want the community to use, and they called them unapproved roads. And so what they did to those roads was they made them impassable. And how they do that is they would dig a hole, pour concrete, and then put I-beams in, so it was impossible to drive on those roads. And then those roads were important to the community, right? They needed those roads. So what the IRA heard about it, and they decided that they were going to ambush the army when they were coming in to make the roads impassable. So they came in early hours and took over my grandfather's house, and they waited for them to come up the road, and then there was a battle about 6 or 7 hours, but anyways, they ended up not making the roads impassable. And so years had passed, and I decided I wanted to depict the story in a piece. And I put the word out in the community to ask the person that organized that, and if he'd be willing to be interviewed. And he did, so that's part of the piece.
The British Army were blowing up crossings on the border in north and south, and they were expected to blow up the road here.
One of the reasons I decided to use carpet underlay, one of the things is that I found interesting, the qualities of the carpet underlay is that is something that is underneath the carpet, and it's never seen, but it's always there. So that was one of the reasons I liked about it. So by using that to portray my images is very much like the politics in Northern Ireland, where a lot of things would happen, but you never really knew the full story. But it was always there, right? It was omnipresent. And so this was one of the first times that I incorporated photography in the carpet underlay. And the photography is from snapshots from my grandparents' house. Yeah. So I wanted to show sort of like just kind of banal, boring, domestic, everyday events that went on in the house. Also with the audio, kind of placing both of them together. Another quality I loved about the carpet underlay, one of the things it reminded me of when I was experimenting with it first is when I picked the rubber off and there was that yellow kind of yellow ochre color underneath, and that reminded me of when photographs age and they turn yellow, when a newspaper ages and it turns yellow, but you still have this sort of the graphite black text or image, right, on the newspaper, or you still with an old photograph, even the color fades and almost becomes monochromatic. So that's one of the reasons why I like the carpet underlay. And also with the photographs, through my process with using Photoshop and enlarging them and doing the photo transfers, it kind of gets rid of a lot of detail, so it adds to all that mood, right? Sort of that melancholy, right? Dark, kind of quiet mood. Yeah. I wanted to do something like when I was living in Belfast. I did a whole series on portraits, and I thought it was why I did it because I was living in close to those communities, and I was seeing them every day. And then when I left Belfast and I moved to Calgary in Canada, I wanted to still do work about Ireland and also my identity, and I was trying to think, how can I bring both together? And then I thought I could use specifically the place where I spent a lot of my youth, a lot of my time. Started incorporating things that took place in that one spot. And I thought that it was sort of something I knew really well. I also thought it was about, there's bigger themes like place, identity, and definitely the place, because it was right on a border. That's why all these events would happen.
Would be in three positions. One was taken over of Johnny Flynn's house. The other was to the north of Johnny Flynn's house, to the left, where a landmine had been put in place near to where they expected the army to blow the road. And the third was just at the top of the hill here, where we're sitting now.